What's up, everybody? Welcome to another live Start Sit with the Fatboyz presented by the Fantasy Holics for Week 2 NFL action, Brant. Listen, got another full slate of games today, and you and I are trying something a little bit new this week on the cast, a couple of different things. We have posted our favorite streaming options for you guys to go back in the comments and check out for defense, kicker, and quarterback, tight end. And then we have also put together a Fatboyz ladder, which I'm going to pass to Brant to let him explain that. But that is also posted on the comment thread, so you can scroll back and check that out at numerous different times. We will bring that up again as well.
Yeah, so the ladder challenge is a big thing that swept over. I think it was about a year and a half ago, 2 years. You start with $10. You put it down. You got double your money each time you put a rung on the ladder, and I believe it's 10 days to 10,000. I could be wrong. And if you lose it at any time, you roll back and you're like, well, it was only $10. So it's not too bad. It's just a chance to try to get it out there and maybe double up your money a little bit and help you get some more spending money. I will tell you, I've made it to about the fourth or fifth one. And normally I just can't bring myself to drop that much back on there because I look at how much you've won and it's hard, but we're going to try this here at the Fatboyz over there on Underdog. And like I said, you see it on the screen. We got JSN to have higher than 4.5 receptions, St. Brown higher than 44.5 receiving yards, James Conner higher than 49.5 rush yards, and Drake London higher than 4.5 receptions. In order to get these lines, you click on the player, you click on the double arrow there on the Underdog on their receptions or their yards, and you can scroll up and you will see in order to get a little flex odds to help these ladders build up.
Yeah, exactly, Brent. And like you said, it was just something we wanted to try and get out there and try our hand at it. Being a degenerate and betting on games a little bit has been something that a lot of people have really started taking a shine to in football, whether it be college or NFL. So we wanted to try our hand at this ladder. I know this is something that you had been very passionate about, so we wanted to make sure we got that on there. And again, just to put it back up there again, here is our favorite streaming options. Brant and I sat before the show and talked. Not any of these guys are our favorite option overall at their position. It's just our favorite streaming options that you should be able to find available on your leagues. Potentially, you've got the Rams defense against Cam Ward and the Tennessee Titans. Tyler Loop kicking for the Ravens in a game where they're favored by 11.5 points. Mac Jones against the dreadful Saints, and then we ended up going with Noah Fant at our tight end spot. So we'll put that on there a couple different times as people decide to potentially look for some streaming options. But that is kind of where we're at here, Brant.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, these are great streaming options. We both think that the Ravens are going to lean on the run a lot in the second half, which means they may not find the end zone as much. And kicking deep is Tyler Loop's able to do. And then the Rams, they got after the Houston Texans last week, so I expect them to pin their ears back and get after that rookie quarterback and try to commit some easy turnovers. Mac Jones with a great matchup there against Miami, as dreadful as they looked last week.
Mac Jones against the Saints. Mac Jones is no longer a Patriot.
Yep, you are right. You are right. Thank you for correcting me. Either way, it sounds like he is going to have Juwan Jennings. I apologize for that. I don't know where my head is. Looked right at New England and went right to it. And then tight end Noah Fant had, 3 catches last week? Or maybe he only had 3 targets because I'm not even sure if Cincinnati moved the ball more than 5 yards. But I expect a huge bounce back for them this week. And I expect Noah Fant to have plenty of targets and see enough receptions to be a great streaming option, especially if you're sitting there waiting on the Brock Bowers and you're not able to go get Michael Mayer in order to make that pivot.
Yeah, Noah Fant was actually tight end 9 on the week last week, Brant, at 5 targets, 4 receptions, 26 yards, and a touchdown. So, it's one of those, I think Mike Gesicki's probably still the one in that tight end room there, but I definitely do expect to see some decent stuff out of Noah Fant.
Okay.
All right, Brant, here you go.
Tony comes at us with the trade of Bushy. Does that make ETN a good flex start this week with my other options being Tet and Cooper Cup.
Bigsby.
Yes, Bigsby. That's why I was through for a loop, and then I read it all. I think ETN's a great RB2 start this week. So yeah, absolutely. If you can get him in your flex, I'm definitely starting him over Cooper Cup. He played the most snaps in Seattle and still only saw 2 targets. So I'm not sure what his role actually is going to be. So I definitely am going to start ETN over Cooper, and then Tet McMillan there. Good option, but I still think I like ETN better.
Tet did have 9 targets last week. Man, I can't imagine Carolina's offense is worse this week than they were last week. And I want to say ETN, I could be wrong. Yeah, ETN, I think his long run was 70 some yards, and he couldn't even score on that play. So, I mean, 15 for 70 some still is a good day, but no end zone for him last week. I guess the saving grace on ETN is that he did have 3 receptions. And he wasn't for 61% of the snaps. So, I would say ETN does feel a little safer potentially against the Bengals defense, but I do think you do see a bounce back week from the Carolina Panthers offensively. So I think Tet would be a pretty safe play as well, but with a higher ceiling than ETN in my mind. But I'm okay with either of those two.
Okay, absolutely.
All right. Matt says Ken Walker or Emeka Egbuka this week, Brant.
I actually like this one coming to us because you and me talked about it. I love Egbuka this week. I expect Stingy to go after Mike Evans there. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm looking at the right game. Okay. Want to make sure I'm looking at the right game. So I expect this to be a good week for Egbuka. I know he only saw 6 targets, 4 receptions. I know it doesn't sound as appetizing as, the 9, 13, 11, whatever else we saw last week of some of these big name receivers, but he is the number 2 in that offense. And I expect a big game for him. And that running backfield there in Seattle, I think Kenneth Walker will get a little more run this week. I think it'll be really close to 50-50. I think it was 59-41 last week. I think it'll be a little bit closer to 50-50 this week, but I'm still not trusting it yet. So I'm going to start Egbuka.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know this is your Seahawks team, Brant, and I know you love Kenneth Walker, especially sharing the surname there. But I'm out on Kenneth Walker at this point. I don't want to put him in my lineup unless that's absolutely mandatory. In leagues that if you happen to own both of them, I don't know if I'd want to play either him or Kenneth Walker or Zach Charbonnet because you don't know who it is. The one thing you do know is Egbuka had a great week last week. That chemistry's there with Baker at this point. I expect to see another good week for Emeka Egbuka. And again, at this point, I just can't trust Kenneth Walker after what I saw week 1. I know it's a small sample size, but I just can't trust him after last week. So I'm going to go with Egbuka as well on this one.
Okay. Tony asked Hunter Henry or Evan Ingram. Ingram's game did not look that great last week. 4 targets, 3 receptions. I'm not even sure what Henry did. I'm gonna have to go back and check that one out.
I'm looking that up right now, Brant.
Okay. I know he was trending down not to play, and then all of a sudden he's good to go on Sunday. I think what was Henry's last week? What was Henry's?
8 for 6 for 64.
I'm going to go with Henry this week. I think I'm going to go with Henry. This is the second week. It's just like last year. Hunter Henry's going to blow up for the first 2 weeks, and then he's probably going to become obsolete. So I'm going to go with Henry here. I'm not sure about the Ingram, and plus we're not even 100% sure if he'll be out there as many snaps this week as he was last week.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Hunter Henry as well. I do think Evan Ingram, and I won't lie, I'm not planting an L flag for myself yet. I was very high on Evan Ingram this offseason. I think I still am. But that Broncos offense looked very out of sorts last week against Tennessee, which I do think the Titans defense might be a little better than people think it is. But I want to see a couple weeks of Bo Nix getting back into rhythm before I really start leaning on Evan Ingram too much. So I'll go Hunter Henry in a divisional matchup against the Dolphins that I think has a chance to be a high-scoring game.
Okay.
All right. Rob says Kyle Pitts or Harold Fannin in PPR, Brant.
I'm going with Fannin. I expect Cleveland to have to air that ball out a lot more this week than they did last week, and even airing it out last week. He saw plenty of targets and got involved in plenty. So I'm actually going to lean on Fannin here.
Yeah, I'm going to go Kyle Pitts for one reason and one reason only. I think the Harold Fannin hype is fun, but David Njoku does still exist. I do see a world where both those tight ends exist, but I do think it's going to be one game, one's hot, one game it's the other. I think Njoku has the better game of him and Fannin this week against the Ravens, excuse me. I think, in a tough divisional matchup, I think the Browns will lean a little bit on Njoku there. Kyle Pitts looked really good last week. The Falcons do have Darnell Mooney and Drake London both playing this week, but I think Mooney will be on a snap count. And Kyle Pitts had plenty of targets last week outside of Drake London. He was the number one targeted player for Atlanta. So I think Kyle Pitts actually has a serviceable game. I don't think it's super sexy, but I think he has a serviceable game. And I'm just worried about Fannin and Njoku being on that opposite end of the spectrum kind of thing.
Okay. Absolutely. Tony asked New England defense versus Miami or Baltimore versus the Browns. Was going to say Baltimore, but I think I'm still going to lean on New England because Tua looked horrible last week. So I'm going to lean on New England, and I think that's the stream that I'm going to go with.
Yeah. I'm so nervous about a bounce back game for Miami this week. That really does have me nervous. Christian Gonzalez is back, though, which I think makes a big difference for the New England secondary. Or at least I thought he was back. You gave me a dirty look there. So maybe I'll let you look at that while I'm thinking about this a little bit more. Because if he's back, I like that defense a lot more than I do if he's out. If he's out, I'm going Baltimore.
He is out. He was ruled
Baltimore
out yesterday. I thought I saw that when I had my list of out players come across my X account there. So
I'll take Baltimore then.
Okay.
Zach says Michael Penix or Caleb Williams.
I'm going to go with Caleb Williams here. As much as I like Michael Penix, I think I'm going to lean on Caleb Williams here. I think that this is going to end up in a high-scoring affair game. So I'm going to lean on them. I'm going to lean on Caleb Williams. I hate saying it because I don't know how much I trust the Bears because it is the Bears, but I am going to lean on Caleb Williams here.
Yeah, so Zach, take this with a grain of salt. I am a Falcons fan, obviously. I try not to be a homer too often when it's other people's lineups. I find myself doing that frequently when it's my own, but with others, I try not to. Penix looked like the guy all week last week against the Buccaneers. He looked poised in the pocket. His arm was good. However, Caleb Williams looked fantastic for the scripted part of the game and then looked like a dog's rear end afterwards. So I actually go Michael Penix. Penix threw for 299 yards, had a receiving touchdown, a rushing touchdown. I think Penix is the guy. I think I like Atlanta's weapons more than I like Chicago's. And I think it's Michael Penix for me.
Okay. Rob needs two. He's got Flowers, Henderson, Abuka, and Metcalf. I'm going to go with the Abuka and Metcalf. Metcalf's one of my favorite plays this week with Witherspoon out, and Woolen looked so great last week for our secondary. So I think I'm going to go with DK Metcalf and Abuka.
Yeah, I think I also go with those same two. TreVeyon Henderson didn't have a big enough role last week for me. I do think that role could be a little better this week. And Zay Flowers, I know it's obvious, coming off of his targets and his game last week, he'd be an obvious play. Brant and I both kind of talked about it a little bit before the show that if the Ravens get ahead, they're going to be a team that's just run first, run second, run third, and, let the run game carry them. And I'm going to be honest, too, Rashard Bateman was almost non-existent last week. I don't think that happens every single week. So for those reasons, I'm kind of fading Flowers a little bit this week. I want to see him be consistently the one for a few weeks before I'm really banking on him. So I'll go with Abuka and Metcalf.
Okay.
All right. Jennifer says, Tracy, Hollywood Brown, Calvin Ridley, Ricky Pearsall, or Jamison Williams. Pick one.
I got to go with Hollywood Brown here. I think this is a Super Bowl rematch. I expect a very good, high-scoring game. And Hollywood Brown might be the only one out there catching balls, not named Juju Smith and Travis Kelce. So, yeah, I think I'm going to go with Hollywood Brown.
Yeah, I go Hollywood as well. Too many targets last week or week one for him to be ignored. So I'm going to go with Hollywood as well.
Jed says Javonte Williams or AJ Brown.
First of all, timeout. Who would have thought we'd be having this question on week 2? But after week 1, it's a very valid question. But who'd have thought?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go with AJ Brown. I expect a bounce back for that Philly for him. I guess not for the whole Philly offense, but I do expect AJ Brown to get his targets, especially in this matchup here. I know they want to lean on Javonte to run that ball a lot for Dallas, but I think I'm going to go with AJ Brown in this one. I think I'm going to stick to the that start your studs, start your early draft picks.
I'm just trying to look really quick.
I know Javonte had a heck of a day too.
He did. Yeah, so Eckler and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt last week against the Giants rushed for over 100 yards combined. I think I'm going to go Javonte, Brant. I mean,
okay.
I just think we're looking at this Eagles team, and this is not meant disrespectfully, but you look at this Eagles team, it's built to be a running first team. I mean, I think, obviously you and I like to make jokes occasionally about quarterbacks that are great for fantasy that aren't really great for their fantasy wide receivers, and Jalen Hurts is kind of trending into that neighborhood a little bit. But coming off of the usage that we saw last week with Javonte Williams, it's really hard for me not to put him in again in a very favorable matchup. So I'm actually going to go Javonte just because I do think there's a solid chance he finds the end zone against the Giants, and it wouldn't shock me at all to see him go for 75-plus rushing yards.
Okay. All right.
All right, Yusuf says, hey, guys, happy Sunday. Kicking myself benching Ertz over Fergie, but moving on, pick one in full PPR. Pacheco, Zach Charbonnet, Nick Chubb. It says my running backs are a mess, already starting Kamara.
I think I'm going to go with Pacheco. I think he's going to see a decent amount of targets here, especially with, the banged up wide receiver core, the suspended wide receiver core of Kansas City. So I think I'm actually going to go with Pacheco on this one.
Yeah, it feels like Pacheco just because of how gross the others are. I mean, Nick Chubb only had 50% of the snaps last week for the Texans. And as a Falcons fan, I did watch that Falcons-Buccaneers game last week. They couldn't get anything going against the run against that Buccaneers defensive line. So I don't know as though I expect Nick Chubb to. And again, the Zach Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker deal, I don't know which one of them I prefer week in and week out. And this week, I think the Steelers defense will tighten up a little bit. So I do think you go Pacheco, as unappealing as that is against the Eagles defense as well. But I think that's your play.
Okay. Jennifer asked, Hunter, Fannin, Hollywood, Aaron Jones, or Russell Wilson. Pick 2. Flex half or 0.75 tight end premium PPR IDP also. I think you have to go with the quarterback, unfortunately, for one of them. Who does New England or who does the Giants? They play Dallas, correct? Yes.
Yeah.
I think I'll go with Russ. And I think I want to say Fannin, but I think I'm going to go with Hollywood. Russ and Hollywood Brown, I think.
So I will say in a quarterback super flex league, it's really hard not to start that quarterback. So I'll probably go Russ too, even though I don't think Russ is the starting quarterback in New York for too terribly much longer. But for me, it really does come down to Travis Hunter and Hollywood. Travis Hunter had a serviceable game last week in a game that was never in doubt for the Jaguars, so they didn't really have to pass. I think the Jaguars team has to pass a lot this week. So I think Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter feast this week. So I'm actually going to go Travis Hunter and Russell Wilson in this one.
Okay.
Which Jennifer does follow up with another one. She says Tyrone Tracy or Aaron Jones.
Oh, man. I think I lean Aaron Jones on this one. I know Tracy was the feature back there. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to look up Jones's stuff. I guess it'd be easy if I just look in mine.
It's Tyrone Tracy for me. 74% of the snaps, 5 targets last week. Yeah, I'm going with Tyrone Tracy. When you look at Aaron Jones's week last week, he only had 50% of the snaps, 8 rushing attempts. He was 2.8 yards per carry for him last week. He was saved by that 30-yard touchdown reception for Aaron Jones. I think it's Jordan Mason's backfield in Minnesota. I'm out on all things Aaron Jones this year. I'm going Tyrone Tracy.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go Tracy too after hearing that and looking that up and looking at everything back. That there's nothing there really chasing him down. So I think I'm gonna go with Tracy as well there.
Okay.
All right, Paul says good morning. He's got a dilemma on Bo Nix or Trevor Lawrence at quarterback. They were both so close in rankings for this week, and for another league, Saints defense or Bengals defense for this week. Missed out on my waiver claim for Dallas's defense. I'm going to go to the defense one. I think I go Saints just because they are playing a backup quarterback and banged up receiver room. And the Bengals looked like Swiss cheese with more holes than Swiss cheese has. And then as for the quarterback, I think I go with Trevor Lawrence. I think that's an air out game. I expect a lot of passing to go on. It's the highest scoring game this week, so I'm going to go with Trevor there.
Yeah, it's Trevor Lawrence for me. I think he's one of the sneakier plays of the week this week. I really like Trevor Lawrence quite a bit. As far as the defense, I think I'm in agreement. I'm not going to start Trevor Lawrence and then tell you to start the Bengals defense. So I'll go Saints defense as well. Again, not necessarily a defense that I love a lot, but they are playing Mac Jones as a backup quarterback who, even though Brant and I are bullish on him this week, that doesn't mean he isn't susceptible to having a bad game. So I think we're in sync and unanimously on agreement on those two there, Brant. All right, Charlie says Justin Herbert or Drake May this week.
I'm going with Herbert. I loved what he did last week. He's airing the ball out. He's trusting his receivers. I'm going to go with Herbert here.
Yeah, I think I go Herbo as well. I will say this. I don't think they pass as much as they did in week 1. I do think this is a week you see that run game get established. But for this week and this week, I will say I'll still stay Herbert, even though I'm standing here saying I don't think he puts that many balls in the air this week.
Okay. Ryan comes at us with Bo Nix or Caleb Williams. This is a tough one, but I think I'm going to lean on Caleb here. I think I like Caleb just a little bit better. I want, like you said, I want to see Bo Nix get his legs underneath him and get back to that form he was last year.
Yeah, the Broncos-Titans game last week, it was a great game to watch if you're a defensive fan. I think Bo Nix this season, with how good that Denver Broncos defense is, only has to be a game manager. I don't think he's going to be asked to necessarily go out and win games this year like he has in years past. So I'm going to go, or at the years past last year specifically. So I'll go Caleb Williams as well on that one. Dickie comes at us with Juwan Johnson or Brenton Strange, which this is funny because this is literally a question Brant had to do. And then he says Jacoby Myers or Hollywood Brown. So we'll start with the tight end one, and then we'll go to the wide receiver side.
So, Dickie, I actually picked up Strange and then dropped Strange for Johnson. I'm not a big fan of the matchup against the Niners for Johnson after looking at it, but the targets were there. I'm actually going to lean Juwan Johnson just by a smidge, just because the targets are there, and it is, Spencer Rattler throwing the ball, and I guess if he trusts him, that's who he's probably going to lean on for the majority of that game.
Yeah, I'm going to go Juwan Johnson, and man, I wish I knew for sure if Brock Bowers was out. If Brock Bowers was out, this is 110% Jacoby Myers for me. If Brock Bowers plays, I'm going to go Hollywood. I guess I'll go Hollywood for now, but I will say with the caveat, if for some reason Brock Bowers is ruled out before the 3:00 slate, I think you pivot to Jacoby.
Yeah, I'm going to lean Hollywood on that one as well. Jennifer says she has Russ, but man, it's hard to trust him after last week. Yes, it definitely is. It's definitely really hard to trust. But I think he'll have a small bounce back. They're in no rush to start Dart. They came out and said that. So I think that he is going to be the starter for the foreseeable future. And I do think he has a little bounce back against Dallas.
Yep, I agree. All right, Tony says Drake May, Jared Goff, or Justin Herbert pick 2.
I think I go Herbert and I think I'm going to go with Drake May. I'm going to go with Herbert and May.
Yeah, I'm going to go Herbert and Goff. I think that Lions offense bounces back in a big way this week. So I will take Herbert and Jared Goff. I think you're which we talked about it on the ladder a little bit. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown bounces back. So that means for me, I think Jared Goff does. That Packers defense is legit. I know we talk about how there's going to be that learning curve for the offensive coordinator, taking over for Ben Johnson in Detroit. What better way to learn than to get your face rubbed in the dirt by the Packers defense, which we saw again this week, how electric they are. They've given up 3 touchdowns. I would say are all pretty much in garbage time at this point in the season. So I think that Packers defense could be one that we're talking about, come February as a Super Bowl contending defense. So it will be interesting to see how that Lions team bounces back, but I think they do after week 1. So I'll go Jared Goff and Herbert.
Okay. Jennifer asked Warren or Pearsall. I'm going to go with Warren with the backup of Mac Jones being in there for San Fran. I know we do say he's a streaming option, but I think Warren against the Seahawks, who are they just gave up quite a few receptions to CMC. I know that, CMC is CMC, but I'm going to go with Warren here. I think he's going to see plenty of targets and move and help the Steelers move the ball against us. And we got a banged up defense this week.
Now, it is worth asking, Jennifer, just because after last week, Tyler Warren also had a huge week 1. So I don't know if this is Tyler Warren or Jalen Warren. So, Jennifer, if you could clarify that for us. Because if it's Jalen Warren, I agree. If it's Tyler Warren against the Broncos, I might go Ricky Pearsall. So, Jennifer, if you could clarify that one for us, I think that would help out a little bit, because I assume it's Jalen Warren as well as Brant did. But if it's not, I don't want to tell you to start Warren, it being Tyler against the Broncos defense.
That's fair. That is fair.
Joe says the Seahawks defense or the Lions defense. Yeah. Be better options out there, right?
I'm hoping there's some better options, Joe, because Seattle's banged up. We might be missing Witherspoon. I know that he's making the trip and he's trying, unless Wolin decides that he's going to play football this week and not just stare at the ball as it goes over his head. I think I'm going to go with the Seahawks just because, that's Rodgers throwing against them. This is tough. This is really tough. I was going to go again, say maybe they'd get a turnover or 2. I'm going to lean the Lions. I'm going to assume they're going to get maybe a turnover or 2 against Caleb. So I'm going to go with the Lions. I think that's going to be it. I think the Lions have a better chance of getting a turnover.
Yeah, I will go with the Lions defense as well. I think when you talk about Aiden Hutchinson and Brian Branch and, Alex Anzalone, there's a lot of really talented players on that defense again. It didn't necessarily show out that way in week 1 against the Green Bay Packers, but I do think, there was a lot of momentum on the Green Bay side of things. As much as we talk about the offensive coordinator having a change of things for the offensive side of the ball in Detroit, the same thing happened, for the defensive side. And again, this is not a huge disrespect being thrown to your Seahawks, but on offense, you are looking at a lack of options offensively. Again, no disrespect to your boy Jake Bobo, but he's not striking fear into offenses and stuff there. So I think when it comes to which team I think is going to be better. I think it's going to be the Lions defense this week.
Okay. Zach asked, Trevor Lawrence at Cincy or Dak against the Giants? I think I'm going to go with Trevor here. I think he's going to be in for a big game this week, so I'm going to lean on Trevor.
Yeah, I think Trevor as well. The Dak one I think is interesting because I think Dak could have a big game, but I also think it's the likelihood of the Cowboys having this game put away in the second half is pretty likely. Whereas I think Trevor Lawrence will have to throw for a majority of this game. So I do expect Trevor Lawrence to have the more reason to have a big game. So I'll go Trevor Lawrence as well here, Brant.
Okay.
Francisco asks, does it make sense to start AK and the San Francisco defense?
Yes, it does. I think he's going to see plenty of targets out of the backfield. So, yeah, I definitely am okay with this. San Fran's going to get after the quarterback, so he's going to have to dump it off. So hopefully they're able to get a couple sacks to, help you out there too. But hopefully it's not AK going backwards. But, yeah, I do think that it's definitely makes sense.
Yeah, I think it makes sense as well. You're talking. It's more of a San Francisco defense because of Spencer Rattler than it is a San Francisco defense because of Alvin Kamara. So yeah, I'm fine with starting both of these guys. That's the beauty of fantasy football. Sometimes it happens where you're rooting against the defense, or rooting for the defense, and then against them at the same time. And the beauty of it is you might win one way versus the other, and it might be good enough to win in your match. So. Yeah, I think you're fine starting both of them.
Jennifer does say
go ahead.
Jennifer does say it is Jaylen Warren. So, yeah, I'm going to lean Warren on that one.
Yep, I agree. It does become Warren for me as well. Here, Brent, I'm going to let you take this one as well.
Jay says tight ends against Cincy are auto start for me. Cincy has been bottom 6 team against tight ends every year since 2016. Okay, well. He says start Strange. That was Strange, and who was the other one?
Juwan Johnson. I'm going back up to it right now.
Okay, so Jay likes Strange. I just think there's so many weapons there, so many mouths with Hunter and everything else. I still think I lean Johnson just by a smidge.
Yeah, listen, the logic's there. I don't disagree with it, especially in a contest where we're talking about how much Jacksonville's going to have to throw. I just think after Juwan Johnson's week, and honestly, Juwan Johnson's been pretty good for fantasy the last 2 or 3 years. So that's kind of my reasoning or rationale for wanting him. I think Strange is a very formidable tight end all week. I just like Juwan Johnson a smidge more as well.
Okay.
All right, Jennifer says last one she's got for the week, Michael Penix or Trevor Lawrence. She says she likes them both this week.
I think I lean Trevor here. I think Trevor's in for a big game this week against Cincy, like we've talked about. So I'm going to lean Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I think for me as well. I think it's Trevor Lawrence. I think when you talk about game script and you talk about the way you think Vegas, or the way you think the game's going to go, the way Vegas thinks the game's going to go. This is a contest where the Jaguars are going to have to throw against that Bengals defense a lot. And so for me, for that reason, I think I do go Lawrence. I think there's a good chance Penix has another good week this week, but when you talk about the way the game looks to be shaken out, I think there's going to be a lot of offense in that Bengals Jaguars game. So Trevor Lawrence has kind of been our sneaky play of the week. It feels like we like him a lot this week. So,
yep.
All right, Brant, while we got some time here, you want to jump in and cover the underdog plays of the week for us?
In just a minute, I want to jump back in since we got a couple more viewers here and talk about the Fatboyz ladder again. On Underdog, we took JSN higher than 4.5 receptions, St. Brown higher than 44.5 receiving yards, Connor to go higher than 49.5 rush yards, and Drake London to go higher than 4.5 receptions. This is a little ladder that the Fatboyz are going to try and help you earn a little bit of that spending money there for the Underdog. And then, yeah, we could definitely jump into our place of the week.
All right, here we go. You ready?
Yep.
All right, Brent, go ahead and walk us through your underdog plays for this week, your lineup card, and then I'll take you through mine.
I got Garrett Wilson to see or to get higher than 5.5 receptions this week. I absolutely love this for him. He was a target monster. I know I faded him last week with Justin Fields a little bit, and he definitely showed me why I shouldn't have faded him. I'm sure that's why he did all of it, just to show me up. But he definitely was a target. Sure. Definitely was a target monster there, and I think he will continue to be. And then I've got JSN to go higher than 5.5 receptions as well. I think that this is a game that they're going to lean on JSN again. I think he had 11 or 13 targets last week. It was so many. So I think that they do it again. And then I'm going to go with I got Calvin Ridley higher than 54.5 receiving yards. I know that they're playing the Rams, and I do like the Rams defense, but I do think that it really gets more involved this week, and I like this line for him. And then I'm going to go with DK Metcalf in a revenge game with Witherspoon possibly out and our safety out. I'm going to go DK higher than 65.5 receiving yards as well. I think that this is a chance for DK to really get back into a swing. And he may end up taking one to the house from 70 yards out as well. He does have that capability. So I'm going to go with DK, go higher than 65.5.
Okay. All right, Brent. I've got CeeDee Lamb higher than 6.5 receptions. Again, hyper targeted week one, had some drops. It was a big target of conversation for a lot of people. I think CeeDee Lamb comes out this week and just shuts everybody up and has just a monster game this week. I've got Lamar Jackson higher than 210.5 passing yards. I think this is one that gets done early in this game, in a division rival game. I've got in new fashion for me, Brant, I'm trying to find one of these every week that I think goes lower. I've got Kyron Williams to go lower than 74.5 rushing yards. I think this is a contest that either goes one of two ways. Either that Titans defense ends up being legit that we saw last week, and that's the reason, or the Rams offense is so good that they put them away early and you see Blake Corum and Jacquez Hunter get some run in the second half. Either way, I think Kyron Williams goes lower than 74.5. I've talked about it already a couple times on the show this week. I think Jahmyr Gibbs bounces back and that Lions offense bounces back in a big way. I've got Jahmyr Gibbs to go higher than 96.5 total yards this week. He had 10 receptions last week, Brant, against a team. If he has anywhere near 10 receptions against a team not named the Green Bay Packers, he's easily smashing the 96.5 total yards. And then last but not least, I too have Jackson Smith and Jigba to go higher than 5.5 receptions. He was the heart and soul of you guys' offense last week in a game that went down to the wire against the San Francisco 49ers. I think Jackson Smith and Jigba is really solidifying himself as a top 10 wide receiver in the National Football League. I think that continues right where it left off this week.
Okay, absolutely. I like those. My fifth one was a TD scorer, so I will actually jump into that later when we go into our TD scores. But let's get back to a couple of these comments that we just had pop up before we get into that. Walleye Wrangler asking, Hollywood Brown, Rome Odunze, or Quentin Johnston? I think I go with Hollywood Brown. I think I barely lean Hollywood Brown on this. I do like Johnston. He had a very good game last week, and I think Rome's starting to come on as being one of his favorite targets. But I do think I lean Hollywood here.
Yeah. So for me, this is also Hollywood with the close second being Quentin Johnston. I think he's finally being utilized appropriately with his skill set in that Chargers offense. They're having him run away from people on slants and ins and outs, rather than just sending him on go routes all the time. So I think as he continues to be used more appropriately, and we can see this being a trend and not just a week one thing, I think that could be a change. And obviously also, Hollywood Brown being the pick because the rest of the wide receiving core is so banged up and depleted in Kansas City. I think, a couple weeks from now, Hollywood may be a fade as well. So I go Hollywood as well this time.
Okay.
Adam says David Njoku, Cade Otton, or Colston Loveland in half-point PPR. It's David Njoku for me. I don't love what I saw for Loveland in week 1. Kate Otten was also a non-factor against the Falcons last week for the Buccaneers, so I'm going to go with Njoku, who, even though he was overshadowed by Harold Fannin last week, he still had a very serviceable game last week.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Njoku here, highest scoring game of the week. So it's going to be aired out, and so I think I'm going to lean Njoku as well.
All right, fair enough.
Zach asked, Pollard versus the Rams, Pickens versus the Giants, Pearsall versus the Saints, Ibuka versus the Texans, Hollywood Brown versus the Eagles. Pick a 3 full-point PPR. I'm going to go with Ibuka and Hollywood for my first 2. I like the matchups.
While you think about that third one, I am going to say that I am unanimously agreeing with those first 2, and then I'll pick my third as well. So Ibuka and Hollywood are both the locks for me.
Yeah, I think I go with Pollard as my third one. I think he sees plenty of targets and plenty of chances to run against that Rams defense. They got after the quarterback, so some dump offs could be very useful for the Titans, especially to help get Cam Ward comfortable as he can be. So I think I'm going to go with Tony Pollard.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning Tony Pollard as well in that third spot. I think Tony, is a safety valve for Cam Ward. He had 18 touches last week out of the backfield plus 1 reception, 89% snap share. Again, I think the Rams defense is going to be very serviceable. However, they're not the Denver Broncos, so I think there's a chance for a little bit better work for Tony this week. So I've got Tony Pollard as my third one there, Brant.
Okay.
All right, let's get into those touchdown scores. You alluded to having one that was also the 5th leg of your underdog play. So who's finding pay dirt this week, Brant?
James Conner's going to find pay dirt this week. So he was my 5th one there on my underdog play as well. I think JSN finds the end zone with Porter Jr. being out, I think, and then all the targets he saw. I think JSN finds the end zone. Chuba Hubbard as well is going to find the end zone. And my last one is Jonathan Taylor. Not playing it, not getting too risky yet. I had a very, very good one last week. It hit very early. So I'm going to stay comfortable. I'll get a little riskier later on, but I'm going to stay comfortable with James Conner, JSN, Chuba Hubbard, and Jonathan Taylor.
Does it have to get risky if it hits, Brant? I'm just
Absolutely
saying.
Absolutely not.
If you're hitting, you're hitting. I'm gonna go risky again. Last week I hit I think I ended up hitting 3/4 of mine.
Which, if you flex play it on Underdog, that's money.
I'm going to go with Drake London. Again, I thought Drake London would do it for the Falcons last week. He didn't, but he did see 15 targets, several of those being in the red zone. I think this week Drake London does find his first touchdown of the season. I've got Derrick Henry to find the end zone against that Browns defense. I think there'll be a lot of running from the Ravens late in the game, so I think Derrick Henry is capable of finding the end zone. Chase Brown finds it again for the Cincinnati Bengals in the highest scoring contest of the week. I think anytime they get down near the goal line, he's going to be the feature. And then, are you ready for this, Brant? I had to put something on there that got it plus money that sounded super outlandish. I watched a press conference where this guy got grilled on his recent performances, and he really took it personally. I think Tyreek Hill finds the end zone this week. I think there's a smidge of a bounce back week of a performance of old for Tyreek Hill this week. And I think he finds the end zone, as disgusting as it is to say that. I think he does, Brent.
He probably is going to bounce back because for the first time, and I don't know how long, I'm benching him in our home league, which means he's probably going to go for 50-plus points because I went and traded for Hill in our home league because every time I played against him, I got 50 points dropped on me. So I was like, well, can't play against him if I have him. Well, now he's on my bench.
You went and traded for him because he was given to you for free. Don't get it twisted.
It cost me 2 first rounds.
You won a championship afterwards.
I did.
All right. Kevin says, is Bill Jaworski or Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt a must start next week?
I mean, with Eckler going to the IR, Chris Rodriguez is going to be able to play now. I don't know if he was a healthy scratch this week. I know he was last week. But, yeah, I do think that he will be I'd have to look and see who they play. So I don't know if he's a must start.
He's got the Raiders next week.
I think I would probably start him next week then. Yeah.
Brant, he's seen 33 and 22% of the snaps in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, but their main
14
snap
total.
guy's out now.
I understand that. 14 total carries and 2 targets in 2 weeks. I'm not sure I call him a must start. Because honestly, Eckler's barely been over the 50%, so somebody else was still getting. I know it's Debo, and I expect Debo to get a little bit more in the backfield. Honestly, I think Rodriguez gets activated as well, like you said. I will say this: I think the Commanders are, immensely regretting trading Brian Robinson at this point. I'm not sold on Jacory Krosky-Merritt hype train yet at this point. 4 carries for 17 yards last week. Week 1, he had a serviceable week, but it was saved by a long touchdown. I don't think I'm ready to jump fully on board with this. I think, there's got to be a better option in your lineup for me at this point. I want to see kind of what he looks like as the feature back before I start him. I think, maybe if he has a good week next week against the Raiders and he's getting 55% of the snaps, then sure, maybe at that point. But right now, for me, Brand, I'm just not ready to fully invest in him and buy him the hype. I'd rather trade him for a huge haul and let somebody else buy in on the hype. I'm not quite there yet.
Okay. Ryan asked, PPR 1, Pitts, Ferguson, or Ingram? I think I go with Kyle Pitts here. I know Mooney's playing, but I like Kyle Pitts' matchup this week. I think this could be a good game for the Falcons to get that air raid going a little bit. So I'm going to go with Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's Kyle Pitts. I think, Jake Ferguson would have been a guy for me. But again, George Pickens was added in the offseason. Still really want to see, how that offense starts grooving 3-4 weeks into the season. Evan Ingram, again, same thing. Bo Nix didn't look that great last week, but he didn't have to be. So I think for me, it's Kyle Pitts and a team that looks to be a pass-first team, which makes no sense when you have Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier. But that's what it looked like last week for the Falcons. I think Kyle Pitts had 7 or 8 targets last week. And that was with Drake London having 15. So I'm good with Kyle Pitts on this one as well. I think maybe not the safest floor. We've seen Kyle Pitts not be great for plenty of years, but I think the ceiling is very high for Pitts. So I'll go Pitts as well. Kevin does say he just traded Devonta Smith for Debo. What are your thoughts on that trade, Brant?
I like it, especially with Eckler out. Like you said, he's going to see himself in the backfield a little bit more. Right now, he seems to be the number one guy for Daniels back there, so I like it. Like we've alluded to, Jalen Hurts just did not look good throwing the ball last week and hasn't for a few weeks going back to last year. So I think I love this trade.
Yeah, it's heir apparent at this point through 2 weeks that Debo is the focal point for that Washington offense. He was week 1, and then he was again this week against the Packers defense, which I was fully invested in the fact that I thought Debo would get some carries last week, and he did not. Or this week, excuse me, against the Packers. I thought that would be, something they used to try to, fend off that pass rush. It didn't happen, but I do think we still saw enough from Debo that we know he's the focal point of that offense. And Devonta Smith, when all things are firing, he's probably 3rd best option on that team out behind Saquon and A.J. Brown. So, yeah, and honestly, again, it's no shade to Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is top 3 in fantasy each week, but if I'm relying on him to throw balls to my pass catchers, I'd rather not do that. So, yeah, I think, Kevin, you won that trade. I think that's a good trade for you. All right, Brent. I get this week to have the luxury of not having to tune in and watch a game, super intently until the Sunday night game tonight with my Falcons taking on the Vikings. What game do you think I should tune into on that 1 p.m. slate today?
I think it's New England and Miami. I would have said, Jacksonville and Cincy, but that could end up terrible. if since he doesn't look anything like they used to. So I'm actually going to tune into New England and Miami. I want to see if Miami can turn it around. I'm not really going to tune into it. I'll be keeping an eye on it on the tracker as my Seahawks actually play a noon game, which is very rare for us. But I'd like to see if Miami can get it going again. I'd like to see what New England's putting out there on the field. I didn't get to watch a whole lot of their game last week, so I think that New England Miami game will be a good one.
Okay. Yeah, I think honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you. There is a little intrigue to me to watch you guys' game because of the revenge game for DK Metcalf. But honestly, I think it's going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars and Cincinnati Bengals. I think when you talk about firepower, when you talk about potential to light the scoreboard up, I'm not sure there's a better game than that. I do think I want to tune in a little bit and watch the Browns at Ravens so I can see, if Quinshon Judkins gets any touches, what he looks like for that offense. As we talked about pre-show, I did just trade for Quinshon Judkins, so I'm definitely a little more intrigued in that than I once was. But there's definitely some decent games. That Bills Jets game could be a lot of fun as well. So. Kevin said he had Kraft on his bench and picked up Pitts because Lennon and Mooney were banged up. Have Daniels and Debo didn't want to play 3 people on Thursday night. Also, Kraft targets were low week 1. Yeah, I mean, that's honestly, Kevin, I know a lot of people are making big deals out of Tucker Kraft being on people's bench, and he probably will be tight end 1 for the week. It's how that works sometimes. But I think it's really hard to pick a Packers pass catcher that's going to be the guy. Because Jordan Love does spread the ball around so much. I don't think there's one focal point in that offense. I think with Reed being out for the rest of the season, that does make me lean a little harder towards Tucker Kraft each week. But yeah, I mean, there was no predicting that, honestly. So as far as things go, I think with Lennon and Mooney both being, questionable coming into the week, they both did log a full practice on Friday, so I don't expect them to be banged up. But I think Pitts showed what his role is going to be in this offense. I still think he's serviceable. He's not going to have a Tucker Kraft week, but I think he's serviceable.
Yeah, absolutely. Robin asked, James Cook, Amarion Hampton, or James Conner? One has to sit. No, thank you. I don't want to. I really like James Conner's matchup. You know what? I'm going to do this, and it's going to sound completely goofy, but I'm going to bench James Cook because I want a Monday night player, and I like all 3 of these guys this week. So I'm gonna keep Conner and Hampton in, and possibly bench James Cook just so I have a Monday night guy. I think that's the stupidest thing ever because I like all 3 of them. I think all 3 of them could have great games, great weeks this week. So yeah, I think it's actually going to be Cook.
I'm sitting Omari and Hampton, Brant. I know he had 80%
they play
of the
Monday
snaps.
too.
I'm sitting Omari and Hampton just because James Cook was RB4 on the week last week. He had too good of a contest for me to sit. And James Conner wasn't that impressive, but he found the end zone with a receiving touchdown. So based on where they're at on the season, you've got RB4 and James Cook, RB18 and James Conner, RB32 and Omari and Hampton. So I will go with Omari and Hampton as the odd man out. I'm going to take a cheap shot and just say based on where their current standings are.
There we go. TS says Murray or Fields. I'm going to go with Fields. That rushing upside is too good. They wanted him to run. I know Murray does too, but I'm going to go with Fields. I think between the weapons that he has, the way Breece Hall looked, his rushing, and Fields' rushing upside, and the way Garrett Wilson looked last week, I think I'm going to go with Fields.
Yeah, that's close for me. I don't really buy into the Justin Fields. I think last week he was just a beneficiary of whatever. But I think I go Fields slightly. There is rushing upside for Murray as well. Murray also has Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison, who looked fantastic. And Murray does play the weaker defense in the Carolina Panthers, so it'd be easy to go Murray. But, just based on how Justin looked week 1, I'll go Justin Fields. Clint says, Charbonnet or Walker, Drafted Charbonnet as a handcuff, but looks like he outsnapped and had more touches last week.
He did outsnap. He did have more touches. Walker also didn't play in the preseason at all or at all through training camp. So it's going to take him a little bit to get up to it. If you have to play one of them, I'll lean Charbonnet because I think it's still a couple more weeks before it's completely 50-50. So I'll lean Charbonnet.
All right, I'll go Charbonnet in this one as well. Just simply based on the fact that I did not like what I saw out of Kenneth Walker all last week. Kenneth Walker should be the more athletic of these two, but he didn't look that way last week. So I'll go Charbonnet. I will say this: I think that Steelers defense bounces back in a big way this week. So I don't necessarily love having to play either one of them, but if I had to, it's Zach Charbonnet.
Okay.
All right. We haven't had a chance to talk about it yet, Brant. It is the most important part of the Sunday slate. I know you said pre-show you weren't that excited about it this week. You kind of had the same thing going on that I had going on last week. But what is on the menu for the NFL slate today, Brant?
Well, with my Seahawks having a noon game, the wife went ahead and made some afternoon plans for us. So I'm not having much for dinner. It's probably going to be pretty much frozen pizzas, maybe a couple air fryer things, maybe some French fries or something for the lunch spread. We're going to go out to eat, I think, and watch the Monday night game. So I am excited about that. Sunday night game. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It won't be Monday night games. I got too much stuff going on tomorrow night. But yeah, my spread's not the greatest this week. It's probably going to be frozen pizzas. I was really upset because last week after cooking all that food, I was like, I'm going to have a dip week and just make a whole bunch of dips. And then my wife goes, yeah, well, it won't be next week. So I'm going to abide and keep a happy wife this week. And then next week, I'm going to go, I think, a dip week.
Okay. All right. This week for me is the week. Last week was a little lackluster. This week is the week for me. My wife is making homemade ranch dip. We're having buffalo chicken dip. I'm getting on the Blackstone 2 different times today. We're doing Philly cheesesteak sliders for lunch, which is one of my favorite things to cook on the Blackstone. And then my wife actually requested her favorite thing on the Blackstone. We're having crunch wraps for dinner. So throwing down a little bit this week. We'll have the dips going for, all day. And then 2 different meals on the Blackstone. So we're actually, going all in and going all out this week after having the pizzas and the air fried stuff last week for us. So definitely roles reversed between us this week. So I'm excited about the food spread.
It's like our preseason. So, we got to get back into form too.
That's true. Oh, I'm in form all year, Brant. Obviously, you won't get to because I believe, and I could be wrong. I believe the plans. If I'm not mistaken, you did tell me you had family pictures this week. I believe, so you probably won't do a whole lot of tuning into that 3 o'clock or that 4 o'clock slate. But you do have Panthers, Cardinals, Broncos, Colts, Eagles, Chiefs. Which one are you paying the most attention to, like watching your phone in between setting up for poses here?
That's going to be the Eagles and Chiefs Super Bowl rematch. Should be a high scoring affair. See if maybe we don't have to spit on somebody to, start our game, and maybe they can actually slow the run down. So yeah, I'm going to tune into the Eagles and Chiefs.
I agree. That is America's game of the week, and I think it's going to be for me as well. Got a question here. We'll run through real quick, and then we're going to sign off for the week, Brant. It is Bill asking DeAndre Swift or Trevion Henderson in PPR.
I'm going to go with Swift here. I like Swift's matchup here against the Lions. I think that he'll get out in some space and be able to move the ball. And he showed he was a feature back last week. So I'm going to go with Swift.
Yep, Swift in agreement. Not enough workload for Henderson yet at this point. All right, guys, I say this every week. If you didn't get your questions asked with us in time before Brant and I get off of here, jump onto the Fantasy Holics Facebook page. They got a live start sit going there where they answer your questions. I say live start sit. It's a Facebook post. And then they also have that on X as well. So 2 different platforms there for you to, get your questions asked. Brant did put the ladder on the stage screen one more time for anybody who wants to throw in your $10 and ride with us and see if there's anything else there. And then we did happen to get one more in before we officially sign off here.
I figured I'd jump on it right here when you pass it off to me. Sherman asked Sutton or Pearsall. I'm going to go with Sutton here. I think he's the number 1 guy there. And I'm not trusting San Francisco outside of CMC this week.
Yep, I'll go Sutton as well.
Okay. Absolutely. So that wraps it up for Fatboyz. Like he said, jump on the Facebook if you need a few more questions asked or answered. Jump on the X. And as always, stay hungry.
Stay fat, my friend.